it a bit. Ma'am has done her PhD from AIIMS in clinical psychology, and she has been an invited speaker, and her paper presentations have been many on the related topic. She is nominated for attending national consultation on CMH on 19th and 20th of November at NEEMS Bangalore, and she is deeply interested in child psychology and adolescent psychology and mental health as well. Welcome, ma'am, for your presentation. Tanu, ma'am.
Just give me a minute. Are the slides visible?
Ma'am, only your folder view is visible, ma'am. Slides are not yet visible.
The slides are visible now.
Not yet, ma'am. If you could stop sharing, I'll share my screen, ma'am.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So by the time slides are shared by Dr. Venkatesh, I thank you, the organizers, for inviting me for such an important topic. I'm going to speak about very important aspects that people are talking since 6 o'clock. Are only females the victim of intimate partner violence? Please change the slide. I'm basically a clinical psychologist. So lots of females or children comes with a different complaint. And when we see them, then while inquiring about the stresses, intimate partner violence is very common, you know. So in a way that comes in the clinical interview when we see a child who is very depressed, who is very low, and he's not he's very withdrawn, he's refusing to school, or so many other presentation. So I'll just stick to my topic: intimate violence, intimate partner violence. It's about some fact. IPV is common problem that affects all kinds of people and community across the globe. It does not discriminate. It is important to understand, and it remains one of the underreported crimes due to stigma, fear of consequences for oneself and one's partner and one's family. So that we have been talking about. So there are certain myths and facts associated with it. And when you talk about are only females is the victim of violence, so it's a myth. There is no way he is the victim here. He means the man is the victim here. He's twice her size. Usually, this kind of comments is being passed. It is often assumed that women are always the victim of IPV and men are always the perpetrator, where the fact is men can also be the victim of IPV. And it is estimated that 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. Determining rates of IPV for men can be difficult. Why? Because men are reluctant to report about their abuse, and they may be unlikely to recognize their abuse in the first place. You know, they think due to the gender-based, the upbringing and other cultural this thing, that people would consider men to be the perpetrator more often as compared to the female. Next slide. So, however, it is important to acknowledge women are disproportionately victims of IPV. Though men can be a victim, but women are more likely to be the victim, and the prevalence is more in females, which says 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. So this appears to be an average worldwide, where prevalence rates have been found to range between 24% to as high as 38%. This has been highlighted by Dr. Ashish also. The next question that was raised for me: why don't victims of IPV report continue to stay in relationships with perpetrator? There is a long debate ongoing on this. I think we need to understand the cycle of abuse before moving ahead to understand why this happens. So what happens in abuse? There is a phase of tension building where a person may show some signs of violence. He will throw some objects, he will just roam here and there, he was restless, and then the incident actually happens. Something triggers his mind and he just throws the aggression and violence. And then there is a phase of reconciliation where the perpetrator apologizes to the victim, and he will reassure the victim that this will not happen, this phenomena will not happen, please excuse me, please sorry, please forgive me. So those kind of reconciliations happens, and then there is a phase of calm where there is no violence, everything is going smooth, and suddenly again there is a phase of tension building. So it goes on in a cycle. So you need to understand, women who are victim or men who are victim, they remain in the circle, and it is very difficult to get out of this circle. So if they want to get out, if they want to report, they have to like break the circle. Next slide. So this slide has already been shared by Dr. Pratima ma'am, where mainly the reasons are fear of retaliation by the partners, lack of alternative means of economic support, and moreover concern for their children, lack of support from family and friends, stigma or fear of losing custody of children associated with divorce, because they don't know what are their rights, love and hope that partner will change. That is the main reason why women are not able to leave their partners. Next slide. See, we all understand when there is a violence, escape is a viable option. Why these people are living like this? However, this is not easy. For anyone who is in that situation, it is not really easy. Why? Because abuser repeatedly go to extreme to prevent the victim from leaving. That is the psychology of perpetrator and victim, that they again reconcile, they again go back to that circle, they again spend some time, some quality time, and create some hopes, and they just stuck in that particular cycle. Interviews with men who have killed their wives reveal that either threats of separation by their partners or actual separation were most often the precipitating events that led to the murder. So even if a woman says that I'm going to leave you, what will happen? That the extreme step can be taken by the perpetrator. And there are certain barriers to escape. The fear that abuser's action will become more violent, more lethal, and unsupportive family and friends. Sometimes knowledge of difficulties of single parenting and reduced financial support. And it has been very well been acquainted in our culture that two-parent household is very appropriate and good, despite that it is your matter of domestic this thing. The victim feeling that relationship is a mix of good times, love, hope, along with the manipulation and intimidation and fear. So there are mixed emotions attached to this particular person. The victim's lack of knowledge or access to safety and support. As Dr. Nilanjana was asking about what all support and what all options are available in the legal system for these kind of victims. So there is lack of knowledge. We as a professional, we don't know what kind of support we have. Lack of having somewhere to go. So they don't have a place to go. Next slide, please. Sometimes religious and cultural beliefs and practices may not support divorce or may dictate outdated gender roles and keep the victim trapped in that relationship. कि female को तो बस male के साथ ही रहना है, you are dependent on him, and now you have to stay with him throughout your life. Belief that two-parent households are better for children despite abuse. And then there is anxiety, anticipatory anxiety about decline in living standard for themselves as well as for their children. Then sometimes lack of support to victims by police officers and law enforcement, as the lawyer madam has said, that people who, even the female reveal about the violence, the police officer would say it's a gharelu mamla, it's a kind of domestic dispute, you manage your own, it's not a crime. So it's so long we have to come to understand it as a crime. Some also dismiss or downplay the abuse side of the abuser or do not take the victim's account of the abuse seriously. So that again add on to difficulty in escaping from this relationship. Next slide. This is a very important and beautifully discussed phenomena, Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological response to being held captive. So it is a kind of positive feeling that people develop over a period of time. A female who is living with his partner for last 10, 20 years, and she has developed some positive feeling towards their abuser as a coping mechanism that they use to survive the days, weeks, or even years of trauma and abuse. So this syndrome actually make them a survivor, and make it difficult for them to be away from that particular person and to be away from that particular relation. So they just make connection kind of thing with that person. Next slide, please. The rationalization of the victim that their abuser's behavior is caused by stress, alcohol, problem at work, employment, another factor. There are females, they justify, they rationalize their husband's behavior, that he was tired, he was abused, he was being spanked by his boss, he was into stress, that is why he just hit me. So those reasons can also be a barrier. Societal factors that teach women to believe their identities and feelings of self-worth are contingent upon getting and keeping a man. So here again, that cultural belief and inconsistency of abuse. Again, coming to the cycle of abuse. Abhi ho raha hai, now it is a calm phase. A calm phase is also known as honeymoon phase. They are very normal couple. They are very romantic couple. And then suddenly a day comes, then the blast happens. The victim may also rationalize the abuser is basically good until something bad happens. Basically, they accept the person as good person. Next slide. So with this, I conclude. The risk of staying may be very high. Simply leaving the relationship does not guarantee that the abuse will stop. In fact, the period during which a woman is planning or making her exit is often the most dangerous time for her and her children. And it is common for perpetrator to threaten to harm or even kill their partners or children if she leaves. Next slide. Despite these barriers, many abused women eventually do leave their partners. That's a good news. Often after multiple attempts and years of violence. In a WHO multi-country studies, 19 to 51% of women who had been physically abused by their partners had left home for at least one night, and 8 to 21% had left 2 to 5 times. They need to make multiple attempts before leaving the relationship permanently. And there are certain factors that can actually trigger the escape. The first one is very important, and escalation is violence severity. They say if they see there is a extreme of violence, then a realization that her partner will not change, that this person is going to be like this, he will not change. So that person, the victim, may take some action. And when the things comes on her children, when it comes to the children, when it is affecting to the children, the women are definitely going to take a step. So with this, I end my talk. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the wonderful